Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have medical and health-related news in this one, and there are 5 articles in this episode. All URLs are in the description of this video for your convenience. First one here is off of Natural News, and it says, Doctor removes 130-pound tumor from patient. Was previously told he was just fat. There is a picture of this guy in this, laying in a hospital bed, and make no mistake, he is fat, but obviously 130 pounds lighter after his operation. And the article says, as if modern medicine couldn't get any more twisted, doctors have recently removed a human-sized tumor from a Mississippi man who'd been told he was just fat. The tumor, which has been growing for about 15 years, weighed a shocking 130 pounds. Roger Logan, the 57-year-old man afflicted by this massive tumor, explained to television station KERO, "We did what we had to do to get here. Usually at home, I would sit and it would rest on the floor." Logan spent most of his time confined to a chair in an 8-foot room. He was no longer able to work at the antique shop he owned or participate in activities he had enjoyed. The mass growing from his abdomen continued to increase in size. The quality of Logan's life clearly decreased. Despite frequent visits to various doctors, Logan's plight was consistently dismissed as plain old obesity and was told not to be concerned by his condition. They said it was just fat. You're just fat, Logan recalls. It's just fat developing there. Finally, after years of suffering, Logan and his family did some research and traveled to Bakersfield Memorial Hospital with hopes of finally getting some answers. By that time, the benign tumor had reached a critical 130 pounds and was simply hanging from his midsection. Logan commented, From here up, I was a normal person. Used to say, put a strap around you and you're carrying 3 bags of cement around you all day long, just swinging. Confident in the journey to Bakersfield Memorial, Logan says that Dr. Vipul Dev was the only one who could truly help him, noting that Dev had worked with similar cases in the past. Dr. Dev was able to confirm that the massive protrusion was indeed a tumor, one that may have started out merely as an infected ingrown hair. We're fortunate to have a facility like this where we can do this kind of surgery with very little or no complications, Dev noted. Logan, the surgery was successful and he is recovering well. Soon he will return to his home in Mississippi, 130 pounds lighter and with a new lease on life. Delayed diagnosis like Logan's are one of the leading causes of medical malpractice complaints. Logan is an extreme case where he was dismissed by doctors for years and caused an equally extreme amount of unjustified suffering because of their neglect. Weight is thought too often to be a factor in misdiagnoses because obesity can cause such an array of negative health effects. Doctors understandably can be quick to assume that being overweight or obese is the source of the problem. While there are no statistics on how often weight plays a role in misdiagnosis, it's estimated that doctors can make mistakes in 10 to 15% of all their patients. About half of those are said to cause significant harm. Beyond stereotypes, extra fat can also make it hard to diagnose conditions like cancer, and in Logan's case, his tumor supposedly even felt like fat, making it even more difficult for him to get a diagnosis. A woman going by the pseudonym Karen Tang told CNN in 2010 that when she went to a doctor for pelvic pain, doctors said that they didn't feel anything. By the time I was referred to a gynecologist, I had a fibroid the size of a melon, so large it was putting pressure on my bladder, she explained. So, there you go. If you're going to a doctor and they're just dismissing you and blowing you off, go to a different doctor. The next one we have here is off of Natural News, and it says, man prescribed unnecessary antidepressants for 20 years. Can't make this stuff up. There's no doubt that depression is a serious and debilitating disease. Those trapped in its clutches often feel utterly helpless and many turn to pharmaceutical drugs for relief. Unfortunately, these drugs can carry serious side effects and can cause long-term harm. And in an increasing number of cases, patients who are prescribed these mind-altering drugs find out later that they never needed them in the first place. This was the case with um, the Viscount Luke Montagu, an English peer who was misdiagnosed with depression at a young age and spent 20 years on a merry-go-round of antidepressants and sleeping pills. His story began at the age of 19 when he underwent routine surgery for a sinus infection, and his anticipated quick recovery turned instead to a battle with debilitating headaches and extreme anxiety. Scientists have found that such symptoms are often linked to general anesthesia, but at the time, he was diagnosed with a chemical imbalance of his brain's limbic system and prescribed an antidepressant, amitriptyline. When that drug proved ineffective, he was prescribed Prozac. Over the course of the next 2 years, he bounced from one pharmaceutical to another until he finally tried Seroaxt, I think that's how it's pronounced, which seemed to help. After several very unsuccessful but stressful years in the financial world, the Viscount decided to resign and simplify his life somewhat. He also made the decision to wean himself off the Seroaxt. He immediately went into serious withdrawal. His mind started racing with strange thoughts. He experienced extreme feelings of panic. He overreacted to even minor issues, and he started experiencing problems with his memory. Of course, the doctors had the solution. He was prescribed 4 new drugs, including a very strong um, benzodiazepine called, and I'm bad with these medical things, clozazepam. Clonazepam, I think it is. His symptoms improved, and he felt lucky to have found just the right combination of drugs. But looking back, he realizes that, like any addict, he only felt better because he was getting a fix. Some years later, he returned to the UK after having lived in the US for a time. His new British psychiatrist agreed with his American colleague and confirmed that the Viscount should remain on the same cocktail of drugs. He chose of his own accord to drop 2 of the medications, but remained on the other 2, one of which was the clonazepam, or however that's pronounced. Several years later, when he decided to wean himself off the clonazepam, his problems really began. He was admitted to a psychiatric facility favored by many famous celebrities for what was supposed to be a. He recalls that 72 hours later, his life became hell when he entered what others who have gone through refer to it as a detox. My body became a violent electrical storm with buzzing jolts coursing through my nervous system, while my mind was overwhelmed with racing flashbacks and hysterical thoughts, he said. My ears screeched with tinnitus, sounds blared, and colors were distorted. I couldn't talk or think or move. Through the guidelines for the use of um, benzodiazepines clearly restrict their use to a maximum of 4 weeks. Many doctors prescribe them for years at a time with devastating effects for the patients involved. Viscount Montague left the thriving internal company he had built to focus on his recovery. After 14 months, he was finally clean, but then a new wave of symptoms hit. Worst were the burning pins and needles in my spine, arms, and legs, like someone was scraping a hot cheese grater hard full of flesh, he said. I screamed out, cried, threw myself on the floor. take another drug. Even worse than the physical symptoms was the disturbing sense of losing my mind. Though subsequent recovery has been slow, continues to improve day by day, hour by hour. This pharmaceutical industry perpetuates two substantiated myths regarding depression: that it's caused by some kind of chemical imbalance, and that this imbalance can be magically corrected with drugs. This theory has no scientific backing and will one day be thrown on the trash heap of other unscientific remedies like bloodletting. In the meantime, there are natural ways to treat depression that don't have the devastating side effects of prescription medications. And there's a link you can click on to find those. Patients experiencing symptoms like those of the Viscount would do well to be cautious about stepping onto the roller coaster ride of chemical medicine. So there you go. True better life through chemicals. The next one you have here is off of Natural News, and it says abortion quotas set for clinics by Planned Parenthood, salespeople rewarded with pizza parties when abortion goals are achieved. Murderous practices of the abortion industry are increasingly being exposed by investigative journalists across the independent media, and what they're uncovering is beyond unethical. It's grotesque, even Stalinesque in its evil. Today, LifeSite News has gone public with an investigation that discovered Planned Parenthood is pushing abortion quotas onto clinics, turning workers into their salespeople who are rewarded with pizza parties when they meet their abortion goals. Yeah, it's beyond sick. And jaw-dropping series of alarming revelations about the nefarious activities of Planned Parenthood and the murder agenda of the abortion industry. In previous investigations, LifeSite News has unveiled how Planned Parenthood abortion centers harvest organs of partially born infants, murdering them in the process. LifeSite News is unquestionably the leading investigative source exposing the truth about the abortion industry today. That's why they're under constant attack by the pro-abortion liberal media, of course, which incessantly and deliberately lies about Planned Parenthood's real agenda. I strongly recommend that you not only follow their website, but even consider donating to their cause. Follow more news about the abortion industry at our sister site, abortion.news. Be sure to check censored.news every few hours for breaking news headlines that are censored by the liberal media, and use goodgopher.com as your search engine of choice. It searches thousands of independent media websites. My own podcast on Planned Parenthood is found here, and the original LifeSite News article is below. And you can watch some videos and read the rest of that article on Planned Parenthood and the abortion trade. Wow. The next article that I have for you is off of Natural News, and it says many questioning the accuracy of food research due to the financial ties between researchers and food companies. These days, you will find media, government, and academia telling us all how we should be eating for health and vitality, but with so much conflicting information out there, how can you know for sure what is actually true and what is simply industry propaganda pushing fake health advice for the purpose of maximizing the bottom lines of corporate food interests? Many skeptics important questions like this, and it's become ever clearer that many of the suggested health guidelines pushed on the masses actually originate from food corporations that stand to benefit from people consuming things like refined sugar, for instance, or industrially processed fats like those derived from canola and soybeans, the types of things commonly found in fake processed food. Take the recent study out of Canada, which tried to push the narrative that low sugar diets are substantiated in terms of promoting health. The findings were so anomalous to common sense that skeptics decided to look into any potential financial ties between study authors and the junk food industry, which, as it turns out, were rather prominent. According to reports, the study was funded by an organization known as the International Life Science Institute, or the ILSI, which is backed by some of the biggest players in processed food. Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, McDonald's, and Hershey's Company, just to name a few. One might assume that this pertinent information was hidden from public, but the fact of the matter is that it was not. The authors fully disclosed that the research was predicated upon arriving at findings that benefited their sponsors and is perhaps the most concerning aspect of such research, which today is present in nearly every scientific journal. What makes the case exceptional is not that the fast food companies, including those that make sugar-sweetened beverages, funded the study that concluded the current sugar limiting advice is flawed, writes Carly Weeks for Canada's The Globe and Mail. It's the fact that the relationship and the potential conflict of interest was discussed so openly. Dietitian groups speak out of both sides of their mouths when it comes to financial conflicts of interest. Whether or not it is enough to simply include a quick line at the end of a study explaining financial conflict of interest, offering a type of thank you to its sponsors, is the subject of considerable debate, especially as the conclusions of such studies in many cases end up becoming policy. In Canada, the Group of Dietitians of Canada says it has certain checks in place to protect against such conflicts of interest, but this type of admission by groups comes across as disingenuous, to say the least, when it's simultaneously planning a sponsorship event this June at which the Canadian Sugar Institute, or the CSI, will be stocking the breakfast buffet. Canada include the University of Toronto's program in food safety, nutrition, and regulatory affairs, which openly admits on its website that it accepts cash from CSI, PepsiCo, Mead Johnson, and others. Flawed research that takes place at schools like this and from which receive funding from sponsors such as this is what governments use to develop food policy, which many see as a glaring problem for public health. Interest guidelines and disclosure policies can only go so far. Weeks writing for the Globe and Mail adds, at the end of the day, we have to remember the ultimate goal of the food industry are not aligned, and sometimes compete with nutrition researchers and organizations. So when they fund a conference, study, or program, think carefully about exactly what they may be getting in return. And the final article I have in this episode is off of Natural News, and it says, Banana Boat sunscreen under scrutiny after 5-year-old suffers severe sunburn after using their lotion. Scroll up here. Here we go. One of the most popular names in sunscreen is Banana Boat, and getting a lot of bad press after customers complained about the company's products failing to protect against sunburns. At least 6 people in Australia, 4 of them parents of young children, reported to news.com that despite using some of the highest SPF sun protection factor formulas made by Banana Boat, they all developed severe burns, and in some cases of the first and second degree. A 5-year-old girl is among these victims, her mother claiming to the media that she had to be treated in the hospital for severe burns after a family beach trip, despite rigorously applying Banana Boat sunscreen to her daughter's back, shoulders, and other sun-exposed areas. Danielle Batten says her daughter's skin turned beet red, peeled, and blistered, leaving her in excruciating pain. She just wakes up in the middle of the night screaming in pain, Batten told news .com.au about her daughter's horrible experience after using Banana Boat. I piled on the sunscreen before we even left the hotel room because her being a kid, I didn't want her to get burnt. We went to the beach between 12 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. and got in the car and went home. That night, her whole back was blotchy and red, and the next night, when we were getting ready to go out for dinner, I noticed some blisters on her shoulders and thought it might be from the sunburn. We got home and the blisters had popped and her skin started tearing. 9-year-old Abby Helmrich had a similar experience after an SPF 50 Banana Boat aerosol spray was applied to her skin. Within 45 minutes of being outside in the sun, her skin fully protected, according to Banana Boat instructions. Young Abby started to turn dark shades of pink. Within just a few hours, Abby's skin developed some severe blisters the size of 10-cent coins. She was in a fair amount of pain, her mother told reporters, adding that she wants to see Banana Boat products pulled from the store shelves. She's not a kid that whines when she's hurt, so for her to say to me she was burning was a big thing. Banana Boat sunscreens failed to deliver on claims after consumer group testing. Denying that anything might be wrong with its products, Banana Boat Regional Vice President in Australia, Ivan Nurch, or Newich, issued a rather patronizing public statement saying that he was sorry to hear that some customers were unhappy after using the company's sunscreens. He added that an internal company investigation had found no issues with any Banana Boat products, referring or inferring that the burn cases may have been user error. It may seem like there are a lot of complaints, but we have sold millions of sunscreens each year to many satisfied companies, Newich said. While this may be true, it doesn't necessarily mean that Banana Boat products are in the clear. A 2015 investigation by a local consumer group known as Choice found that at least 2 Banana Boat SPF 50 products failed to work as claimed. It is unclear, however, whether or not these 2 products are still on the market and if they may have been implicated in the recent string of burns. Banana Boat, in the meantime, is battening the hatches and sticking to the claim that its products are virtually flawless. Any product claiming an SPF must meet precise testing requirements before it can be sold in Australia, a regional marketing director for Banana Boat told thenews.com.au. Our products are uniquely formulated and rigorously tested to meet the claims SPF as required by Australian sunscreen standards and in compliance with TGA regulations. So there's that information, and that's all I have for you in this episode, but I got more episodes to follow, so stay tuned. Give it a thumbs up. Let me know. And share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and that way you'll stay informed. We'll see you in the next one.